Hello, I'm Vanessa, and I'm here to present the KI paper entitled Teenage Visitor Experience, a Classification of Behavioral Dynamics in Museums. Here is the program for this presentation. I will start with a little introduction on museums, teenagers, and overall project. Museums' best practices suggest to segment audiences in groups with respect to their motivation, social group, and expectations. Teenagers are known among museum professionals as a difficult group to reach, as they appear to be generally disinterested in what museums have to offer. The overall project was part of my PhD on enhancing museum experiences for teenagers, which I used the Natural History Museum of Funchal in Madeira Island in Portugal as the setting and inspiration for my studies. First, I deployed workshops with teenagers to understand which features for them a perfect museum mobile experience should have. Then, after analyzing the data, the results inspired the design of two different mobile applications, one centered on gaming and one on storytelling. We then made an evaluation of these mobile apps aimed to understand how these teenagers responded to these different engagement strategies and to cross their response with their personal attitudes. This research contributes to a better understanding of the museum visiting behavior of teenagers in order to inform the design of mobile apps. For this contribution, we pointed out 3 research questions, and later I will answer them based on our results under the discussion section. Previous co-design sessions with teenagers were the basis for this contribution. The aim of these sessions was to better understand teenagers' preference when visiting museums. Teenagers played an active role in the creation and development of ideas, acting as informants and as source of innovation. The results of these sessions suggested that teenagers appreciate mobile experiences that include novel technologies, such as augmented reality and virtual reality. They are also keen to share their experiences over social media, favored options for different tours, and suggested a mix of stories and games. They proposed games with treasure hunts, competition, timeout and collection strategies, and stories that give them the opportunity to become the protagonist of the experience. These results were the basis for the development of 2 different mobile apps. We conducted several meetings with the museum's director and staff to understand the museum's message, goals, and efforts and struggles in engaging their teenage audiences. Secondly, the production team attended several museum tours to understand the building and the main species on display and start with the concept creation, the development of the story, and its characters. These 2 mobile apps have the same background story. The audience is then prompted to help the characters to find the truth about several mysteries by interacting with the museum species. Besides, the mobile apps are informed by the same content, they do have 2 different engagement strategies. The game-based approach, it's a ludic strategy. There's a game of shadows, 3D augmented reality models, quizzes, scientific info, and points and pieces of a map that participants should collect. On another hand, the story-based approach, it's a narrative strategy. Firstly, info is given to the user to help them find an exhibit in the museum. And then, after finding the exhibit presents itself in a graphical way and gives further info about the story plot and about itself. Now I will present the methodology for the evaluation of these 2 mobile apps. Overall, 78 teenagers volunteered in the study as part of a school visit to the museum. Prior to the museum visit, in class, teenagers took a personality test to assess their general attitudes regarding their 5 dimensions of the personality. They visited the museum in pairs and were assigned one of the 2 strategies while exploring the museum. For that time, the museum was closed to the public and dedicated to the study. Audio was recorded through the smartphone throughout the visit to capture their conversation and visiting behavior. Within the museum, the pairs were free to engage with the app and with each other in any way they wanted. After the visits, the pairs were interviewed and asked to fill in a questionnaire about the engagement with the exhibition, usability of the mobile app, and their overall experience. Then we conducted a qualitative analysis to understand their visiting behaviors. The recording of the conversation during the visit and the interview were transcribed and paired to analyze the dynamic of each pair. We split the analysis into two sections: the behavior between the teenagers of a pair and the behavior between the teenagers with the mobile app and the museum. In a group, the pair of teenagers can be either lovebirds or frenemies. Lovebirds are always together and do not display any significant disagreements, as they have the same purpose. The frenemies are friends and enemies at the same time. One could be more determined than the other to complete the tour in the shortest time possible, while the other prefers to enjoy the exhibition for longer. Regarding the behavior between the teenagers with the mobile strategy and the museum, we ended up with these four types of visitors. Gamers are motivated in pursuing the mobile experience in the museum to win and be the best. They are not interested in the story, but only in its mechanics. They explore the museum only through the app, which is more important to them than looking at the exhibits. Gamers are competitors when interacting with the game and often fall into the frenemies category. They cheat and cannot be trusted, being focused on achievement and progression. On the other hand, gamers are skippers when interacting with the story and often fall into the lovebirds category. They are not engaged by the story plot and often skip the narrative in order to distinguish themselves in being the first finishing the experience. Explorers take time to explore the museum carefully as they want to experience the exhibits and the museum in details. For them, the story plot or game mechanics are secondary. Winning or losing in the games does not really matter, as they are in it to have fun, learn, and explore. Explorers are split into two strands: achievers and adventurers. Achievers want to do well and achieve the preset goals, but do not see themselves as competing against their colleagues. Adventurers use the tour to have fun and enjoy the original museum visits. They love to play and are thrilled by the gamified experience and taken by the compelling story. Followers only appear in the story strategy. They are willing to listen and take in the full story as they are intrigued by its plot. They follow it carefully and do not skip any story fragments. Uncomfortable participants only appeared in the game. They are, more than anything else, worried about their performance. They often find themselves lost in the museum, questioning if they are taking the right path. And now we move for the quantitative analysis. As our goal is to see if a strategy is conducive of a specific behavior, we applied statistical methods to all of our data. Concerning the story, positive experience is significant between adventurers and followers. This suggests that curiosity and the desire to discover are key factors to engage with story approaches. The match personality trait behavior is consistent with the type of experience. In some, a gamer skipper is impatient and ignores much of the story. A follower wants to make sure that they did not miss anything important, and an explorer adventurer used the story as a means to explore and go further. Concerning the game, people competing against others, the competitors, are more likely to have a more positive experience than those competing against themselves, the achievers. Competitors, which are very immersed in the game, found it harder to return to reality and also felt more tired because possibly of being constantly tense of their fighting against others. And finally, adventurers felt more emotionally connected with the exhibition than achievers who are focused on their performance. In terms of personality traits, uncomfortable tend to be less creative than competitors. As they feel insecure, they are concerned about the others and worried about technology and the game mechanics. Competitors are more prudent than uncomfortable because they really care about taking the right decisions as they want to be the best. These results can be expected when the major feature of the app asks the visitor to act and take decisions. And we finally reach the answers to our research questions. Regarding question 1, we have not found a dominant personality trait per behavior, but several across both apps. For example, gamers stack exclusively to the app, running around the museum to accomplish tasks. Explorers went beyond the app challenges and took on more of the museum than what was strictly asked. Uncomfortable and followers are the expression of the same category of teens with strong conventionals and prudent traits. In the game, they felt uncomfortable because they are forced to act and are worried of being inadequate, while they felt at ease with the story that asked them to go along without taking decisions. Regarding question 2, our data shows a congruence between certain personality traits and a specific strategy. However, the complexity introduced by the personality test does not yield simple matches. For example, impulsive teenagers in the game tend to display an achiever's attitude, while if given a story, show a skipper behavior. Nevertheless, a similar trait could also lead to two different behaviors in the same approach. For example, conventional teens are as likely to act as skippers or achievers with a story-based approach. It is therefore very difficult to pair personality traits with engagement strategies in a reliable way across many variables. Regarding question 3, the combination of personality and interaction strategy generates behaviors that fit, to different degrees, the intended optimal use of the app. Overall, gamers' natural fit is a game-oriented app. Storytelling is more suitable for uncomfortable followers, and explorers are at ease with both. Reflecting on our findings, we suggest that games in museums should be carefully designed. How to make gamers progress without rushing is an open question. Possible solutions are reversing the time approach and let those at a slower pace win the competition. Propose games that accommodate contemplative behaviors. The scoring of the performance should be based on accuracy of the answer rather than fast answers. For explorers, we suggest harmonizing the experience for the ones who display frenemies attitudes as a pair, possibly giving points for collaborative activities and assigning different tasks to each visitor to achieve a single goal. For example, one could go find an exhibit to provide partial answers to a quiz, while the other is drawing an exhibit from life or gathering some other information necessary to complete the task. For followers, we suggest interactive elements that require decision-making could be introduced to challenge and gently push them to be more engaged with the exhibition. Also, from our experience, short and frequent story fragments made the visit more dynamic, avoided skipping, and invited a wider exploration of the exhibition space. For uncomfortable visitors, we suggest not to encourage competition, avoiding game mechanics such as timing, points, and possibly avoid referring to the experience as a game altogether. Care should be spent in making them feel adequate and make sure they take in the needed info before starting the digital experience. In general, we can say that story-based strategies are suitable for a broader set of personalities and generate fewer criticism than game-based strategy that feel well only to the most competitive ones, but not when they are in the same group. And thank you for watching. If you have any doubts or would like to have a chat about these topics, please drop me a line.